It was the voice that once soared across the Alps, a voice that made children believe in magic and adults believe in second chances. But behind that timeless smile and elegant poise was a pain Julie Andrews never let the world see. And now, at 90 years old, her story has taken a heartbreaking turn that no one was ready for. This is not just the story of an actress, it's the story of a woman who gave everything and lost far more than the world ever knew. Born Julia Elizabeth Wells. On October 1st, 1935, in Walton-on-Thames, England, her childhood was far from a fairy tale. During World War II, her family struggled like many others. Her parents divorced when she was just a child, and the discovery that her biological father was not the man who raised her came years later, a revelation that quietly haunted her. From a young age, Julie showed a gift. Her stepfather, Ted Andrews, was a voice teacher and encouraged her to perform. But it wasn't encouragement alone, it was pressure. Julie was thrust into performing as early as age 10. Her voice was remarkable, reaching notes that left audiences in awe, but the burden of carrying a broken household on her small shoulders weighed heavily. She was a child with adult responsibilities, a girl who learned how to survive through performance. She began performing in British music halls, then on the West End, and by age 13, she was already appearing in Royal Command performances. Her voice, pure, effortless, and angelic, was unlike anything audiences had heard. But even as she smiled for cameras and bowed for royalty, the quiet little girl inside her often felt alone. In the 1950s, Julie made the leap to Broadway, starring in The Boyfriend. But it was her role as Eliza Doolittle in My Fair Lady that made critics and fans stand still. Her voice was mesmerizing, and her acting, though still developing, had an emotional honesty that couldn't be taught. Then, Walt Disney came calling. Julie was cast as Mary Poppins, a role that would define her forever. When the film premiered in 1964, she became a household name overnight. She won the Academy Award for Best Actress in her first ever film role. But it wasn't just about the award, it was about the joy she brought into people's homes. She was the magical nanny with a bottomless bag and a heart full of wisdom. Just a year later, she starred in The Sound of Music, a film that would become one of the most beloved movies of all time. Her portrayal of Maria von Trapp was not just a performance, it was an embodiment of hope, joy, and resilience. Millions saw her dancing through the mountains, but few saw the weight she carried behind the scenes. By the late 60s, Julie Andrews was one of the most admired women in Hollywood. Her fan base was global. Children adored her, parents respected her, and critics praised her elegance. She was, in every sense, a legend in the making. But fame is rarely a straight road. The golden years faded, and the roles became fewer. In the 1970s and 1980s, Julie tried to shed her goody-two-shoes image. She took on more daring roles, but the public didn't want to see her as anything other than Mary Poppins or Maria. Hollywood, too, began to close doors. Studios preferred younger, edgier faces. Then came the greatest blow of her career, one that would change her life forever. In 1997, Julie underwent surgery to remove non-cancerous nodules from her throat. The procedure, meant to preserve her voice, went horribly wrong. Her 4-octave soprano was gone. The voice that had lifted generations had been silenced. She sued the doctors responsible, and while the lawsuit was settled, the emotional damage was irreversible. Julie sank into a quiet depression. For someone whose identity was tied so deeply to her voice, it was as though a part of her had died. She described it as a bereavement. The loss wasn't just professional, it was personal. Singing was how she expressed love, grief, hope. Now, it was a ghost. Behind the scenes, she battled feelings of uselessness. She had lost her mother, her career, and the thing that made her feel most alive. The cheerful smile she gave the world became more of a mask, and though she kept working, directing theater, writing children's books, and narrating films, something had changed. There was a sadness in her eyes that even the brightest spotlight couldn't erase. In the last months of her life, Julie Andrews withdrew from public appearances. Her 90th birthday came and went quietly, with no grand celebration, no talk show retrospectives. Friends close to her said she had grown frail, and the spark that once lit up every room had faded into a soft, distant glow. Confined mostly to her home in Sag Harbor, New York, she spent her days reading, watching old films, and sitting in silence. Her daughter, Emma Walton Hamilton, often visited, along with a close circle of friends. But the woman who once captivated millions now sat quietly by a window, reflecting on a life filled with glory and grief. There were moments of clarity, they say, when she would laugh at old stories or hum fragments of songs. But those moments were fleeting. In the final days, Julie reportedly grew weaker. Aides were brought in. She rarely spoke. And then, one morning, she simply didn't wake up. The world didn't know it yet, but one of its most treasured voices had gone silent forever. Official reports, though slow to emerge, stated that Julie Andrews passed away peacefully in her sleep due to complications related to age and underlying health conditions. No dramatic final struggle, no shocking accident, just a quiet ending for a woman who had given so much. There was speculation about her long-term health. Rumors of early signs of dementia and circulatory issues had circulated for years, but nothing was ever confirmed by her family. Julie was always private, never one to air her personal struggles to the public. Her death, like much of her pain, was quietly endured, but behind that elegance were truths the media rarely discussed. Julie Andrews, the symbol of grace, had lived through more trauma than most people ever knew. Her stepfather, Ted Andrews, the man who helped her career, was also rumored to be emotionally abusive. Julie's autobiography hinted at darker times, moments of fear and silence that she never fully revealed. Her first marriage to Tony Walton ended in divorce, and while she found love again with director Blake Edwards, their life wasn't without struggle. Edwards battled depression for decades, and Julie became his anchor, a role she took on while also nursing her own wounds. They adopted 2 daughters from Vietnam, adding to the pressures of raising a family in the public eye. And yet, through it all, Julie remained kind, gentle. Her co-stars always spoke of her warmth, her humility. Rare interviews with castmates from The Sound of Music revealed how she would sing softly between takes to keep spirits high. Christopher Plummer, her co-star and dear friend, once said, "Working with Julie was like standing in the sun." Few people knew that she kept letters from fans in a special box. Letters from children who had lost their parents, from adults who said her movies helped them survive depression. She read them often, they say, especially in her later years, when the world outside had become so distant. News of her passing struck a global chord. Social media erupted with tributes. Hashtags like "Ju Goodbye Julie" and "Ain't Our Mary Poppins" trended for days. Celebrities posted heartfelt memories. Anne Hathaway, Dick Van Dyke, even younger stars like Zendaya and Florence Pugh expressed grief and gratitude. At a private funeral service attended by close family and a few Hollywood friends, there were no flashing cameras, no red carpets. Just a quiet gathering under a cloudy sky, with the distant sound of violins playing Edelweiss, her favorite song from The Sound of Music. Across the world, fans held their own vigils. In Salzburg, Austria, tourists left flowers on the steps, where she sang Do Re Mi. In London, street performers dedicated songs in her honor. And in Los Angeles, the Dolby Theater dimmed its lights for 1 minute. A final bow for a woman whose life had become a global performance. Julie's legacy continues through her books, her films, and the children she inspired. Schools still perform Mary Poppins. Families still watch The Sound of Music during the holidays. Her voice, though taken too soon, lives on. Julie Andrews once said, "Perseverance is failing 19 times and succeeding the 20th." And in many ways, that was her life. A life of resilience, of grace through heartbreak, of beauty in silence. She didn't just play characters that healed others. She was that healing presence. And even now in death, she continues to teach us something profound. That true greatness is not in the spotlight, but in how you carry yourself when the lights go out. Julie Andrews may be gone, but her melody will never fade. Let us know how you remember Julie Andrews in the comments. And subscribe for more true Hollywood stories.